At my daughter's 17th birthday, my sister smashed her iPhone, then called the cops on her. Both my parents fully sided with my sister, even signed a false police report. I didn't yell. I did this. 3 months later, my parents were panicking and my sister sorting garbage. I didn't start that day thinking I'd ended at a police station. But that's what happens when your sister shows up uninvited to your daughter's birthday, smashes her iPhone, and then calls the cops on her. Yeah, let that sink in. It was my daughter Ellie's 17th birthday. She had been planning this party for weeks. Nothing huge, just a chill evening with her friends, some lights in the backyard, snacks, music. The kind of night a good kid deserves. A normal birthday. That's all we wanted. But instead of music and candles, the night ended with fluorescent lights, an accusation of assault, and my daughter holding the busted remains of her phone in an evidence bag. I remember the exact moment it all flipped. I was sitting in a cafe with my husband halfway through an iced coffee when my phone rang. Unknown number. Normally I'd ignore it. Could be spam, a scam, some weird charge from Amazon again. But something in my stomach twisted and I picked up. It was Ellie. Mom. Her voice was tight like she was trying not to cry. I'm at the police station. Can you come get me? I stood up so fast I nearly flipped the table. My husband stared at me mid-sentence like I'd slapped him. What's going on, he asked. I'm fine, Ellie said quickly. Just please come. I didn't do anything. What number is this, I asked. Where's your phone? Silence. Julie smashed it. Julie, my sister, my younger sister, 18 going on eternally chaotic. She did what I asked. She smashed it. Then she called the police on me. Suddenly the world shrunk. All I could hear was the buzzing of the overhead lights and the thunder of my heart. She said I pushed her, Ellie whispered. I didn't. She slipped. But now she's saying I attacked her. I didn't ask for more details. I just said, we're coming. The drive to the station felt endless. My husband gripped the steering wheel like it owed him money. I kept my eyes on the road, trying not to cry or throw up. I didn't even know Julie was planning to come that night. Ellie had set everything up herself and we'd given her space, like normal, trusting parents. When we got to the station, it didn't feel real. The waiting room was too quiet, the lights too bright, the chairs too plastic. A young officer with a clipboard came out and told us Ellie was being released. There's no charge yet, he mumbled. Then why is she here, I asked. There was an accusation of assault. She's under investigation. Ellie came out a few minutes later looking like someone had unplugged her. Face, blotchy, eyes red. Holding her shattered phone in a clear plastic bag like it was Exhibit A. She didn't say a word until we were back in the car. It was supposed to be a normal party. She said her voice barely there, then she showed up. We didn't say anything. What could we say? I told her I'd call you, Ellie continued. She took my phone. Then she fell. I didn't touch her. I swear. I turned toward her. Did anyone see what happened? Some people were outside, she said. But her friends backed her up. Maya and Brianna. They said they saw it. I nodded. You're not going to jail. But what if... You're not, I said again. She didn't believe me. That was okay. She didn't need to believe me. I just needed to believe her. When we got home, she curled up on the couch while I made her tea she didn't want. Then I sat down next to her and said, start from the top. Slowly. She nodded, mascara still smudged under her eyes. She came with Maya and Brianna, Ellie said. I told them they weren't invited. I told them to leave. But they acted like I was the problem. Julie brought backup, I asked. Ellie gave a small, exhausted shrug. Everyone at school knows those two aren't nice. Apparently they brought alcohol, cranked up music, and kept mocking the party. Julie handed out drinks like she was hosting. I told them to stop, Ellie said. Said I'd call Dad. That's when she grabbed my phone. And smashed it, I asked, jaw clenched. Yeah, said, oops, you should be more careful with your cheap phone. Then she turned around, slipped and fell. She started screaming that I pushed her. Her voice cracked. Maya and Brianna backed her up, like they rehearsed it or something. I took a deep breath, then another. Wait, I said, the camera, the one facing the back garden. Ellie blinked. You think it caught it? I hope to God it did. We ran to the office and pulled up the security footage. It took a minute to scrub through the motion-triggered clips, but there it was. Golden hour lighting. Julie and her two sidekicks strolling into the backyard like they owned it. One of them pulled a speaker out. Another handed a drink to someone. Then Ellie came out, calm, tense, spoke to them. Julie rolled her eyes. Then the moment. Ellie reaching for her phone. Julie grabbing it. Two-handed overhead slam onto the patio bricks. The phone bounced. Then Julie stumbling toward the steps, slipping on absolutely nothing and falling like she was auditioning for a daytime soap. Maya and Brianna rushed to her dramatically. Ellie stood frozen, hands raised like she was under arrest. I looked at my daughter. That's it. That's everything. She nodded, tearful again. But will it matter? It will, I said, standing. We're not done. I grabbed my phone and, out of habit more than anything, opened Facebook. I wasn't ready to post. Not yet. I just needed to breathe, maybe distract myself for a second. But then I saw it. A new post from my mother. Just text, no photo, no context. Please pray for my sweet Julie. She was assaulted tonight by someone we trusted and is now in the hospital being monitored for a possible fracture. We're heartbroken and shaken. Our family needs time to heal. I froze. The blood drained from my face. I read it again. I read the comments. Oh no, poor Julie. Sending love to your family, Julie, is such a bright light. I hope she recovers quickly. I read them out loud until Ellie whispered, stop. So I stopped. And then for the first time in months, I did something I swore I wouldn't do. I called my mother. She answered on the first ring. Well, I assume you saw the post. I did, I said flatly, and I also saw the footage. Silence. Julie wasn't pushed. She slipped. And she smashed Ellie's phone before that. There was a pause. Then, you're seriously going to take her side after what your sister's been through? I blinked. My sister, I said slowly, who crashed my daughter's birthday, who brought alcohol to a party full of minors, who faked an assault. She's in the hospital, my mother snapped. She's traumatized. And now you're adding insult to injury. I pulled the phone away from my ear and took a long, controlled breath. I'm sending you the video, I said. No, don't. Too late, I replied. Already sent. I hung up. 5 minutes later, my phone rang again. You think you're clever? She barked. I didn't respond. You really think I'm that stupid? She continued. That video is fake. Obviously fake. Edited. God knows what you and your husband did to it. I froze. Excuse me. Everyone knows he's a video editor. You probably used some AI garbage to make Julie look bad. Do you want to destroy this family? I said nothing. Listen to me, she hissed. If you send that footage to the police, if you dare cause more trouble for Julie, you're no daughter of mine. Don't come crying to me when you realize what you've done. I stayed calm, too calm. Julie lied, I said. You know it. You saw it. Goodbye. She hung up. I stared at the screen for a few seconds. Then I set my phone down like it might explode. It wasn't her threat that got to me. It was the fact that I had shown her the truth in perfect 1080p. And she looked at it and chose the lie anyway. And suddenly everything made sense. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was afraid, because I was furious. You can scream at someone or you can call a lawyer. I picked the latter. By 9:07 the next morning, I had an appointment. By 4 p.m., my lawyer had copies of the video footage witness statements from Ellie's friends and a calm, formal plan to press charges civil and criminal. Property damage, trespassing, filing a false police report. Ellie didn't say much during the process. She looked exhausted, like someone who spent their birthday being accused of a crime and was now waiting, hoping that the adults in the room would do what they're supposed to. I promised her we would. 3 days later, I got a call from the detective handling the case. Hi, he said. Just wanted to let you know we received several written statements today. From your sister, Julie, and from your parents. My stomach dropped. My parents, I repeated. Yes, all three claim that Julie was pushed down the stairs, and both your parents say they witnessed the push firsthand. I blinked so hard I nearly dropped my phone. I'm sorry I said they weren't even there. They weren't at the party. They weren't invited. I'm just telling you what we received, the detective said carefully. I thanked him, hung up, and sat down hard. Because what the hell do you even do with that? I'd seen some spectacular lies in my life, but this one. Signing a legal document saying you watched your granddaughter shove someone down the stairs when you were across town. That was bold. That was something else entirely. And unfortunately for them, it was also something provably false. See, my parents weren't just not at the party. They were very visibly not at the party. That same night, at the exact time they claimed they saw Ellie push Julie, my mother was holding a mason jar full of jam at her favorite overpriced boutique. I didn't even have to dig for it. She was tagged in a photo smiling mid-sample holding something called Mango Meditation. Timestamp 7:41 p.m. The same moment she claimed to witness the fall from my backyard. She even commented under the photo, always a treat, love supporting local. I sent the screenshot to our lawyer. Her reply, beautiful. That's a confession with a fruit garnish. Then there was my dad. Because of course the universe has a wicked sense of humor. He left a public Google Maps review of a cafe down the street at the same time. Good espresso, service slow. Between that, the boutique's internal security footage, and the digital breadcrumbs. We had a digital trail so solid it might as well have been chiseled in stone. And then came the final punch. A neighbor came forward, said he saw them. Ran into my mom and dad that same evening while walking his dog 10 blocks away from our house. After they posted about Julie's injury, he messaged them. Said he was confused. He'd literally spoken to them around the same time Julie supposedly fell. My mom left him on red. Our lawyer compiled everything. Screenshots, timestamps, metadata, a sworn statement from the neighbor, and a forensic verification showing the video footage hadn't been edited, filtered, or manipulated. She handed it all over to the police with a single sentence. Not only did my client's daughter not push anyone, but 3 adults filed a false witness statement. We didn't hear anything for a few days. Ellie was on edge the entire time, quiet, withdrawn, barely speaking, unless we asked her a direct question. I tried to be calm, tried not to hover, but inside I was boiling. Then the call came. The charges against Ellie were dropped, formally, completely, and with a verbal apology from the officer who had processed her at the station. And Julie. She was offered a deal. No trial if she took accountability. The usual first-time offender arrangement, 60 hours of community service, mandatory alcohol education, restitution for Ellie's phone. She accepted. Of course she did. In the mediation room, she didn't say a single word to us. She sat across from Ellie wearing sunglasses indoors like a minor celebrity allergic to accountability. She didn't even look at my daughter. Just nodded once when the officer explained the terms. Then signed and walked out like none of it mattered. I watched Ellie carefully waiting to see if she'd cry, yell anything. But she just sat there, arms folded, jaw tight. My parents. They got hit too. They were fined for filing false witness statements. Not jail time, unfortunately, but enough to sting. Enough to make things public. Enough that their names showed up in records that would follow them for a while. Even our lawyer, who'd been calm and professional the whole time, allowed herself a smile. But what I didn't expect was what came after. I thought that would be it. That they'd retreat. Maybe be embarrassed. Maybe finally be silent. Nope. My mom posted a second status, public again. This is what happens when truth is punished and lies are rewarded. Julie is healing. Our family has been torn apart by jealousy and manipulation. We won't be silenced. I stared at the screen in disbelief. The comments were mixed, to put it mildly. Some people still blindly supported her. Sending prayers. Stay strong. Julie deserves peace. But then Ellie's classmates started chiming in. You mean when someone brought booze to a party they weren't invited to and smashed a phone? I saw the footage. Y'all are crazy. And then slowly at first people started really speaking up. My aunt texted me directly. We saw the video. I'm so sorry. We believed them at first. We won't make that mistake again. My cousin messaged, your mom needs help, real help. Even my dad's old golfing buddy, who I didn't even know, had Facebook commented. I hope the girl is okay. This is embarrassing. You'd think maybe that would be enough for my mother to back down. Take the post down. Admit some level of fault. Nope again. She doubled down. Posted again, this time about AI manipulation. Apparently, deep fakes were tearing families apart. Apparently, Ellie had a history of jealousy, unpredictable behavior, the usual smear campaign stuff. And I'll be honest, I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I blocked her instead. I blocked both of them. Because here's the thing, it's one thing to be wrong. It's another thing to be shown the truth in high-definition time-stamped authenticated and still choose the lie. That's not confusion, that's a choice. So I told Ellie we were done. No contact, no explanations, no back and forth, just silence. She looked at me like she couldn't quite believe it. Are you sure, she asked? Yes, I said. I'm sure. We're not going to court again. We're not going to play their game. They had a chance to stop. They doubled down. They lost. For the first time in weeks, she exhaled. It was a tiny breath, but it felt like she'd been holding her lungs hostage since the night of her party. She finally believed it was over. We didn't throw a party. We didn't go out. We just stayed in. Made pancakes with way too much whipped cream. Laughed about Julie possibly cleaning toilets for her service hours while still pretending her elbow was hurt. Watched a movie together. Then another. I didn't even check my phone. And when Ellie headed upstairs to bed, she paused at the top of the stairs. Thanks for standing up for me, she said. I didn't say anything clever, just nodded. Because that's what you do for your kid. Even when it's your own family you're standing against. Especially then. It's been 8 months since all of this happened. Julie finished her community service at a local recycling center. Word is she spent most of it complaining about smells and trying to switch shifts. No one cared. My parents still haven't spoken to me, but my aunt forwarded a message they sent to the extended family group chat. Something about forgiveness. Something about fake news. Apparently they're the victims now. Again. We didn't respond. Ellie didn't either. She's busy with college applications. One of her essays, What I Learned from a Ruined Birthday. It's honest, calm, braver than I was at 17, braver than a lot of adults I know. We're not perfect, but we're solid. No more family drama, just peace, pancakes, and then people who actually want to be in our lives. And honestly, that's better than family. But now I have to ask, did I go too far? Or just far enough? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and tap the bell. A lot of people asked me afterward, but wasn't it hard? Cutting off your parents, your sister. And yeah, it was. Of course it was. No one wakes up one day excited to burn bridges with the people who raised them. No one dreams of filing police reports against their own family. But sometimes those bridges are already burning. You're just the one deciding not to stand there and breathe in the smoke anymore. What made it harder wasn't the loss, it was the gaslighting. The part where they acted like I was the one destroying the family. Like my refusal to pretend Julie was the victim somehow made me the villain. Like my insistence on evidence on truth was toxic. Let me be really clear here. Choosing peace doesn't mean tolerating abuse. My daughter didn't deserve what happened to her. She didn't deserve to have her party hijacked, her phone, destroyed her name, smeared her freedom, jeopardized all for someone else's performance, someone else's attention-seeking spiral. And I won't apologize for doing something about it. You know what's funny? The minute we blocked them, the silence was deafening and beautiful. It felt like walking out of a room where someone's been screaming for years and finally closing the door. We started sleeping better, laughing more. Ellie began spending time with friends again, real friends, the kind who stick around when you're not the main character in a drama. She even got her phone replaced finally. Took 3 weeks of wrangling with the insurance company and chasing down the original receipt, but she did it. She chose a different color this time, bright blue. I'm not hiding anymore, she said. I want people to see it. She'd been walking around school with that shattered phone for months like it was a badge of survival. Now she wanted something different. Something hers. A reset. And it hit me then this wasn't just about her phone. Or the party. Or Julie. It was about reclaiming control. About not letting someone else write the story for her. I started doing that too, in small ways. I rearranged my office. Deleted a bunch of old voicemails I'd been hanging onto out of guilt. Even donated a few things I'd been keeping from my childhood just because they were family heirlooms. Sometimes healing is practical. But it wasn't all easy. Some people didn't get it, some still don't. A cousin messaged me 2 months later with a long paragraph that started with, I'm not taking sides, and ended with family is everything. I left it unread. Because you know what, family isn't everything, especially when they choose ego over empathy, lies over loyalty. Family is what you build, not just what you're born into. Ellie's school counselor, who'd been checking in since the incident, once asked me what I'd learned through all of this. I didn't even have to think. I said that I can't control what other people do, but I can control what I accept. And that shift, it changed everything. It changed the way I talked to Ellie. It changed the way I showed up for myself. It even changed the way I looked at my past. Because once I really looked, I realized this wasn't the first time my parents had rewritten a story to fit their narrative. It wasn't the first time they'd chosen Julie's comfort over my daughter's safety. It wasn't the first time they'd tried to gaslight someone into submission. It was just the first time I had enough evidence and enough strength to stop playing along. And the ripple effect's unexpected, kind of amazing actually. My aunt started reaching out more, not just texts, real invitations, coffee, walks. She told me she never realized how much she'd bought into the Julie is just sensitive line until she saw the video. She said she was embarrassed, but grateful. A former neighbor I hadn't talked to in years messaged out of the blue. I saw the post your mom made. Then I saw the footage. Just wanted to say good for you. That couldn't have been easy. Even Ellie's principal sent a short professional email. Glad to hear the matter has been resolved. Wishing your daughter the best moving forward. That line, it hit different. Because for the first time in a long time, that's what we were doing moving forward. No more checking the door to see if Julie would show up uninvited. No more waiting for the next guilt trip text from my mom. No more explaining ourselves. Just living, quietly, honestly, fully. One evening, maybe 2 months after everything settled, Ellie and I were sitting on the porch. The sun was setting. She had her sketchbook out. I was sipping tea. It was one of those quiet, nothing special kind of nights that ends up sticking with you. And she looked up and said, "You know, I used to think you were kind of scary." I raised an eyebrow. "Thanks." She laughed. "No, I mean, not mean. Just like strong. Like nothing got to you, but I see now you were just holding it all together." I didn't respond, just let her words sink in. She flipped a page in her sketchbook. "I get it now. You weren't scary. You were protecting me." And that right there, that was it. The whole reason I did what I did. Not to win, not to get revenge, not even to prove anything. Just to protect her. Because that's what a parent is supposed to do, even when it's hard. Even when it means walking away from people you love. Even when the ones hurting your child share your DNA. A few weeks after that porch conversation, I found myself standing in our garage sorting through old storage boxes. You know the kind mismatched plastic bins stacked on top of each other, dusty from years of being ignored? I wasn't looking for anything in particular. Maybe some closure, maybe just space to think. One of the boxes was labeled family photos. I hadn't opened it in years. Inside were the usual suspects, old Polaroids, birthday snapshots, beach trips from the 90s where everyone looked sunburned and mildly annoyed. And there in the middle was a picture of me holding baby Julie. I must have been about 17. She was maybe 6 months old, chubby-cheeked and screaming her head off. I was smiling. That tight, careful kind of smile you wear when you're trying to hold everything together. I stared at that photo for a long time. Because for a while, I really did try. I tried to be the good daughter, the good big sister. I let things slide. I let Julie get away with stuff because she's just young or she's going through a phase. I swallowed my own hurt every time my parents overlooked Ellie. I kept pretending it wasn't a pattern. But that photo reminded me it's not our job to keep the peace when it costs us our sanity. I slipped it back into the box and closed the lid. A few days later, Ellie got her first college acceptance letter. It was a small in-state university, nothing flashy, but the joy on her face was like sunlight. She called her best friend. They screamed. I made brownies. She came into the kitchen, held up the email, and said, "I wish Grandma cared." I paused. Then I said, "You know what? I hope she cares, but we're not waiting on her." Ellie nodded slowly. "I know, it just sucks sometimes." It does. It really does. Because grief doesn't always show up with funerals and black dresses. Sometimes it's just an empty space where love should have been, a silence where a congratulations should have gone, a family group chat you no longer want to be part of because it's not safe anymore. We didn't do a big holiday that year. No extended relatives. No awkward dinners where people pretended not to know about the incident. Just us, a lasagna, and a stack of new board games Ellie wanted to try. At one point, my husband turned to her and said, "We're going to start our own traditions." Ellie grinned and replied, "Can one of them involve skipping the dishes?" It felt simple and good, and ours. I did hear through the grapevine because, of course, someone always tells you that Julie was telling people the video had been deep faked, that her arm still hurts when it rains, that she might be considering legal action for emotional damage. She wasn't. It was all bluster, the kind that wilts under scrutiny. But still, it made me realize how far some people will go to preserve a story even after it's been blown to pieces. There's this quote I came across recently, something like, "The truth doesn't mind being questioned. A lie hates being challenged." That stuck with me. Because every time we showed evidence, my parents and Julie got more defensive, louder, more dramatic, and yet we never changed our story. We didn't have to. The truth just stood on its own. Meanwhile, their version kept bending under the weight of its own contradictions. I mean, let's not forget, they signed sworn legal statements claiming they were at the party, while simultaneously being tagged in boutique photos across town at the exact same time. That's not just a lie, that's a whole fantasy novel. What bothers me most, though, is that they didn't just lie to save Julie, they lied against Ellie. They saw her pain. They saw her scared. They saw her sitting in a police station with puffy eyes and a shattered phone, and they still chose the other side. How do you forgive that? I don't have a neat answer. Some people would say you have to forgive to move on, but I think that's too simple. I think it's okay to move on without forgiveness when the people involved aren't sorry. Forgiveness to me is like a gift. You offer it when someone shows remorse, when they're willing to do the work. My parents never did. Julie definitely didn't. So I stopped offering. And let me tell you, removing that pressure, it felt like unclenching a fist I didn't know I was holding. Ellie started therapy soon after everything happened. Not because she was falling apart, but because she wanted to understand how to rebuild without resentment. Her therapist told her something that stuck with me. You're allowed to feel hurt and still choose boundaries. Those two things can exist at the same time. Yes, exactly that. That's where we're living now, in that messy, complicated, healthy middle. We don't pretend it never happened. But we also don't let it define us. Ellie's doing great, by the way. She's got a part-time job at a bookstore. She's saving up for a little used car. She still wears her heart on her sleeve, still triple checks everyone's food allergies before hosting anything, and still rolls her eyes every time someone brings up Julie's healing journey. She's herself, stronger, softer in the right ways, harder in the ones that matter. And me, I'm proud, not just of her, but of myself too. Because choosing your child over your comfort, over your past, over your own family, that takes guts. And if I had to do it all over again, I would. 1,000 times over. You know what's wild? After all that happened, I still catch myself waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like some part of me believes the chaos isn't done, that Julie's going to pop back up with a new accusation, or my mom will send a carefully worded email pretending none of this ever happened. It's like emotional muscle memory. When you've lived in a storm long enough, the silence feels suspicious. But the truth is, it's been quiet, peaceful even. And I'm learning how to live in that, learning how to unclench, how to stop bracing for betrayal. One afternoon, Ellie and I were grocery shopping, just doing the usual, debating frozen waffles, trying to remember if we had enough paper towels. We passed the floral section, and she stopped and picked up this tiny potted succulent. I think I want this, she said. For your desk, I asked. For me, she replied. Just that, no reason, no justification, just because she liked it. I nearly teared up, because after months of defending herself, months of being called a liar and a troublemaker and everything, but a good kid, here she was, reclaiming her right to enjoy something small, something gentle, something just for her. It was like watching a bruise finally fade. And I think that's the part people don't talk about enough. The recovery isn't always dramatic. It's not some huge epiphany or triumphant montage with inspirational music. Sometimes it's buying a plant. Sometimes it's opening your blinds. Sometimes it's just waking up and realizing you're not scared anymore. A few weeks after that, I got a wedding invitation in the mail. It was from a cousin on my mom's side. I opened it slowly, expecting drama. A passive-aggressive post-it, maybe? A guilt trip in fancy calligraphy? But there was nothing. Just an invite, plain and kind. Ellie saw it on the counter. Are we going? I shrugged. I don't know yet. Will Grandma be there? Probably. She nodded thoughtful. Do we care? I smiled. Not as much as we used to. We did end up going. And yeah, my mom was there. So was my dad. And Julie in a floor-length dress that looked like it had been stolen from a soap opera set. But here's the thing. They didn't come near us. Not once. They saw us, registered our presence, then looked away. It was the strangest kind of power, not the loud confrontational kind. The quiet kind. The kind where just existing in your truth makes the people who wronged you uncomfortable. Ellie handled it like a pro. She danced. She laughed. She helped the bride fix her veil and told the ring bearer he looked like a tiny CEO. And when we left, she grabbed a slice of cake for the road. We didn't talk about the three people pretending we didn't exist. We didn't have to. Because they weren't the main characters anymore. They weren't even extras. They were background noise in a story they no longer controlled. On the drive home, Ellie leaned back in her seat, watching the trees blur past. I'm glad we went, she said. Not for them, for me. I'm glad too, I said. Do you think they'll ever apologize? I took a long breath. Maybe, one day. But that's not something we wait for. She nodded. Yeah, I don't need it. And she meant it. She's not carrying it around anymore, not letting it define her. And that more than any legal win, more than any public apology is the real victory. Because if you'd seen her that night 3 months ago sitting in that police station with a crushed phone and crushed spirit, you would have never imagined this version of her. And yet here she is, thriving. One of her college essays was recently published in a student journal. It was the one titled, What I Learned from a Ruined Birthday. I read it 3 times and I still cry at the last line. I didn't learn who I could trust. I learned that I could trust myself. And that was enough. She's applying for a psychology major, by the way. Wants to work with teenagers, help kids who go through stuff like she did. I want to be the adult I wish I'd had that night, she told me. And again, I cried. Because that's the kind of person she is. She doesn't just survive, she transforms. And you better believe I'm going to be sitting front row at whatever graduation ceremony or wildly niche seminar she invites me to. With a huge sign and snacks. Because when someone shows you grace and strength like that, you show up for them. Every time. The funny part. In all of this, I never really planned to share the story. Not like this. Not publicly. Not with strangers on the internet. But something shifted when it was all over. When the court stuff wrapped up. When Ellie got her apology, when the dust settled and we were just living again. I realized how many people out there have their own version of a Julie. Or parents who pick sides instead of picking truth. Or a moment where they chose peace and got punished for it. And I thought maybe telling the whole thing would help someone feel less alone. So here we are. And if you're still watching, still listening, still reading along, thank you. Seriously. Because what happened to my daughter wasn't just a fluke. It was a pattern finally breaking. And patterns don't like being broken. They push back. Hard. You stand up and suddenly you're the problem. You draw a boundary and suddenly you're cold or selfish or dramatic. But let me tell you something, boundaries are not betrayals. Refusing to be mistreated is not an attack. Calling out a lie is not cruel. And protecting your child, that is never ever wrong. It doesn't matter if it's your sibling, your parent, your favorite aunt who bakes the best pies. If someone crosses the line and harms your kid, you draw a line so thick it needs a zip code. The hardest part was realizing my parents weren't just enabling Julie, they were teaching her. Not with words, but with actions. Every time they excused her behavior, every time they brushed off her tantrums, every time they defended her cruelty with she's just sensitive or she didn't mean it, they were giving her a blueprint. How to get away with it. How to weaponize victimhood. How to twist a narrative until the truth feels like fiction and fiction feels like fact. So by the time she was old enough to lie on a police report and drag a teenage girl into an interrogation room, she had already learned how to play the part, and no one held her accountable until we did. That's what made them so mad. Not the footage, not the evidence, not even the legal charges. The fact that we didn't back down. The fact that Ellie didn't apologize just to keep the peace. That I didn't delete the video just because my mom demanded it. That we chose truth over tradition. Family in our house used to mean keep the secrets. Now it means keep each other safe. It's a big shift, but it's the right one. Ellie recently told me she wants to volunteer at a youth center over the summer. Not for college credit, just because she wants to. She said, I think I'd be good at helping people feel seen. She already is. Sometimes I look at her and think this kid grew up in the shadow of people who tried to make her smaller, and she still turned out big, bright, brave. And yeah, it makes me mad sometimes. The lost time, the birthdays we spent walking on eggshells, the way my mom used to say she's a little dramatic anytime Ellie expressed her needs. But I also think maybe it made her who she is. Not because she had to go through it, but because she chose what to do with it. She didn't become bitter, she became better. And that's not something you can fake. Julie, meanwhile, still posts like she's the main character in a redemption arc. Vague captions about growth and healing with selfies and inspirational lighting. A lot of inspirational quotes misattributed to Maya Angelou. But here's the truth: healing doesn't require an audience. And redemption, it's not a performance, it's a process. One that requires accountability, not hashtags. My mom still posts too. Passive aggressive one liners about betrayal and family loyalty that seem designed to bait me into reacting. I don't. Not anymore. Not because I'm afraid, because I'm free. Free from the guilt, from the gaslighting, from the invisible leash of what will they think. What they think doesn't matter anymore. What Ellie thinks does. What I know does. And what we've built, this quiet, stable, loving space, that's our legacy now. Not the mess behind us, not the family feud. Just the choice to move forward with people who want to grow. The other day, Ellie caught me scrolling through old photos again. She sat next to me, looked at a picture of herself as a toddler in the backyard, hair wild, grinning through a face full of watermelon juice. She smiled. I used to think that was the happiest I'd ever be. I turned to her. What do you think now? I think she said that was just the beginning. That night after Ellie went to bed, I stayed up a little later than usual. Not doom scrolling or stress baking like I used to do, just sitting in the quiet. No drama in the background. No vibrating phone with 20 unread messages. Just me. A half-finished mug of chamomile tea. A little peace. And I realized something I hadn't fully processed before. I'm not angry anymore. Not the way I used to be. Don't get me wrong, there's still a scar. Still a sting when I see a Facebook post about Julie's strength or hear through the grapevine that my mom told someone I've completely changed. But it doesn't eat me alive now. It doesn't control my days. It doesn't make my hands shake. That kind of peace, it didn't come easy. It came from watching my daughter survive a betrayal that could have broken her, and then watching her choose to grow from it. It came from realizing I had spent years, decades, trying to earn love from people who offered it like a prize with conditions attached. And it came from letting go. Letting go of the idea that family should always be forgiven. Letting go of the fantasy that someday they'd wake up, apologize, and finally treat Ellie like she mattered. Letting go of the idea that keeping the peace was the same as having peace. Spoiler alert, it's not. You can keep the peace and still lose yourself. Still lose your joy, your sleep, your kids' trust. And at some point, you have to choose their comfort or your own freedom. I chose freedom. And because of that, Ellie got hers too. A few days ago, we were at the bookstore where she works. I dropped by to surprise her during her break and bring her a smoothie. She came out from the back wearing her little employee lanyard, smiling so big, I thought my heart might burst. She hugged me and said, I've got a regular now. A regular, what I asked. Customer. She comes in every Thursday, asks for book recs. Told me I remind her of her granddaughter. I watched her talk about it so excited, so proud, so her. And I thought, this is what healing looks like. Not a big courtroom showdown, not a public apology. Just a 17-year-old girl who's been through hell and still finds joy in recommending someone a book on a Thursday. And yeah, I know the internet loves a revenge story. A takedown. A plot twist where the bad guy ends up jobless or exposed. But this isn't that. This is a story about choosing not to live in that mindset. About deciding that peace matters more than punishment. That truth matters more than theatrics. That healing isn't about humiliating the people who hurt you. It's about making sure they never get to hurt you again. We still get questions sometimes. From extended family, from mutual friends who weren't there for any of it but think they're entitled to a play-by-play. Most of them ask it like this: is everything better now? I always smile and say everything's different, and that's better. Because better doesn't mean perfect. It means we sleep at night. It means Ellie's not afraid to host her friends. It means we can laugh without checking the shadows for the next disaster. It means when the doorbell rings, our first thought isn't what now. It means we can finally breathe. And in that breath, I found the clarity to start rewriting the rest of my life. Not just as Ellie's mom, but as me. I started painting again. Something I hadn't done since college. Nothing fancy, just some watercolors, a cheap sketchbook, and a playlist of songs I forgot I loved. It felt clumsy at first, like trying to remember how to ride a bike with one wheel missing. But after a while, it started to feel like home. One night, Ellie peeked over my shoulder and said, "That's actually really good." I laughed. "You sound surprised." "I am," she teased, but in a supportive way. And there it was again, that softness, that lightness, that us. We're not waiting for apologies anymore. We're not waiting for closure that may never come. We're building something new from the pieces they tried to break. And you know what? It's stronger now. Because it was built on truth, on choice, on standing up instead of staying silent. People like to say time heals all wounds, but that's not quite true. What you do with that time, who you surround yourself with, what boundaries you enforce, what stories you let go of, that's what heals you. So if you're watching this and wondering if you're wrong for cutting someone off, or if you're doubting yourself because the people who hurt you are acting like victims, now let me remind you, you are not crazy. You are not dramatic. You are not mean. You are done. And sometimes done is the healthiest thing you can be. You know what no one ever tells you? That the real grief doesn't come when you walk away. It comes after. It shows up in the quiet moments, the ones where you realize someone who used to know your whole life story now knows nothing about your day. That the person who raised you doesn't know what your living room looks like anymore. That your sister who once shared your bath toys and birthday cakes is now just a stranger with matching DNA. And you start to question things. Was it really that bad? Could I have handled it differently? What if I just stayed quiet? That's the trap. Because when you grow up in dysfunction, especially the kind that smiles in family photos and says, we're fine through clenched teeth, your brain gets good at rewriting history to make it more palatable, more survivable. But the truth doesn't care about your nostalgia. And if you're lucky or stubborn, you stop trying to water down the past. You let it be what it was, not to live in it, but to learn from it. That's where I'm at now, honoring what was while no longer living in it. The version of me that used to shrink to keep everyone else comfortable, she's gone. The version that used to second guess every decision because what if they get mad? She's gone too. What's left is quieter, calmer, fierce in the places that matter. Ellie sees it. So does my husband. He told me the other night, you seem taller lately. I laughed. Probably just my new shoes. No, he said. I think it's because you're finally standing up straight. And that hit me hard because for years I was hunched under the weight of pleasing everyone, carrying expectations that weren't mine, letting guilt be my compass. Not anymore. I don't owe anyone access to my peace, especially not people who tried to ruin it. And that includes family. Yes, even your mom. Yes, even the sister who had a rough childhood. Yes, even the dad who means well. Because love without accountability is not love. It's manipulation with a bow on it. Ellie's birthday came around again recently. This time, no drama, no cops, no broken phones. Just a small group of friends in the backyard. String lights, a Bluetooth speaker, cupcakes she made herself. No alcohol, no Julie, no surprises. She made a playlist and called it Vibes That Won't Get Me Arrested. The first song was Good Days by SCA, and I couldn't have picked anything better myself. At one point, I saw her laughing with her friends, head thrown back, eyes scrunched. And I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not relief. Joy. Pure, uninterrupted, no shadows on the wall kind of joy. Because this wasn't about fixing what had been broken. It was about building something new that didn't need fixing in the first place. A life where we choose who gets to come in. A life where peace is the priority, not performance. And that's the thing. No one talks about when you cut ties with toxic family. Yes, it's lonely sometimes. Yes, people will judge you. Yes, you will question yourself. But also, you'll breathe deeper. You'll laugh louder. You'll sleep better. You'll stop preparing apology speeches for things that aren't your fault. And slowly the grief will become gratitude. Not for what happened, but for what it showed you. For who you became after it. For the freedom on the other side. Ellie asked me recently, if they ever apologized, like really apologized, would you talk to them again? I thought about it. I don't know, I said, but I don't need to. And that's the real gift. Not closure, not revenge. Clarity. Knowing where you stand, who you are, what you'll no longer tolerate. That's something no one can take from you, not even the people who raised you. So if you've ever felt guilty for choosing distance, for saying no, for not forgiving someone who's never shown remorse, I see you. And I'm here to tell you, you're not heartless. You're healing. You're not bitter. You're setting boundaries. You're not overreacting. You're responding to a lifetime of being minimized. And you don't owe anyone your peace just because they share your last name. So here we are, a year later. No screaming matches, no dramatic interventions, no miracle apologies from people who finally saw the light. Just us, me and Ellie. A smaller circle. A quieter life. A lot more pancakes than we probably need, but that's the point, isn't it? Because the truth is, after the storm clears, after you stop trying to make people see what they refuse to see, after you finally let go of fixing the unfixable, that's when the healing starts. Not when someone says sorry, not when you get justice, not when everyone claps for your strength. It starts when you decide you're done performing, when you're done shrinking, when you're done giving more chances to people who keep proving they don't deserve them. I used to think cutting off my family would leave a hole in my life. What it actually did, it made room. Room for healthier friendships, room for late night talks with my daughter about everything from zodiac signs to forgiveness, room for me, the version I forgot I could be before I got tangled in their dysfunction. And the funny thing is, people still ask, don't you miss them? Yes, sometimes. I miss the idea of them. The version I created in my head. The mother who would show up and defend my daughter. The sister who'd admit her mistakes. The father who'd say, I'm sorry I wasn't there. But I don't miss them because they were never those people. They were always who they showed me they were. I was just too hopeful to believe it. And now, I believe people the first time they show me who they are. That doesn't mean I'm cold. It means I'm wise. It means I love myself and Ellie enough to stop gambling with our peace. So if you're someone who's in the middle of that decision, teetering on the edge of going, no contact, or holding on just a little longer, let me tell you what no one else will. You're not evil for protecting yourself. You're not dramatic for calling it abuse. You're not heartless for saying I've had enough. You're a person who's done being hurt. You're someone who understands that blood is not a free pass. And that you get to define what family means, not your mom, not your sibling, not the cousin who keeps texting you to let it go. You. You get to choose. Ellie chose too. She didn't just move on, she grew. This past week, she got accepted into her top choice school. And not just accepted, invited to speak at their incoming student orientation after the admissions team read her essay. The one called What I Learned from a Ruined Birthday. She stood up on that stage in front of rows of students and parents and staff and told the story. Not the whole gritty version, but the shape of it. The lesson in it. And she ended with this. Sometimes the people who say they love you the most are the ones who hurt you the deepest. But that doesn't have to be the end of your story. You get to decide who you become after it. I chose to become someone I needed when things went wrong. And now, I want to be that for someone else. There wasn't a dry eye in the room, including mine. I clapped so hard I thought I'd sprained something. I cried like it was my own graduation. Because in that moment, all the sleepless nights, all the fear, all the heartbreak, it wasn't erased, but it was redeemed. Ellie didn't just survive what happened. She turned it into strength. And me, I stood beside her, like I always will. Even if it means standing apart from everyone else I used to call family. So now I leave you with this. If you're wondering whether you did too much or not enough, ask yourself one question. Did you protect your peace? Did you protect your kid? Did you walk away so you could both breathe again? If the answer is yes, then you didn't go too far. You went exactly far enough, and you're not alone. Not anymore. So share your story in the comments if you want. Or just take a breath and know someone else out there gets it. We're building something new. One boundary, one truth, one healed moment at a time. And that's family. If you made it this far, thank you. And if this story helped even one person feel seen, then it was worth telling. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. I've got more stories coming. And trust me, you won't want to miss them.